Hello everyone, my name is Ben Snyder and this is my quality improvement project about baseline concussion testing in high school athletes. Before I get into the quality gap and identifying goals, I'm going to give a little background information about the setting. El Paso Independent School District, or EPISD, is a school district with 10 high schools. All these high schools currently follow the University Interscholastic League, or UIL, policies outlined by House Bill 2038, or Natasha's Law in the state of Texas. UIL mandates the return to play process for concussions. However, it does not require or regulate baseline testing or concussion evaluation. Each athletic trainer at each campus is able to do this at his or her own discretion. Each campus ends up playing each other several times per year, and this leads to other athletic trainers evaluating several different student athletes from different schools. With this happening, there ends up the possibility of several discrepancies created between each campus and their athletic trainers when diagnosing and evaluating concussions for the district athletes. The quality problem identified is the school district does not have a standardized baseline testing or evaluation method, and this can cause athletes, coaches, and parents to question the other campus athletic trainers' diagnosis or evaluation techniques, since this is not what they're used to from their home campus. The general and overall goal for this project would be to implement a standardized baseline test available to all athletic trainers on each campus either through the Arbiter Athlete EMR system or through a Google Drive doc. This would make the evaluation procedure have some consistencies between all campuses and could potentially decrease the questioning or confusion from the parents, athletes, and coaches, and also can increase awareness among the involved parties. For this project, our improvement team would consist of the campus athletic trainers, school nurses, team doctors, coaches, and athletic director. There are 21 athletic trainers in the school district. However, for the beginning of this project, we would start with 3 athletic trainers and 1 high school. The athletic trainers are the focal point for this improvement team, responsible for several aspects during this process. The athletic trainers will be responsible for doing the initial research on which baseline test to be implemented. They will also design the implementation protocols, which include administering the test, and finally, they will educate other members as well as members on the concussion oversight team mandated by Natasha's Law. School nurses are included on this team, but only if House Bill 961 passes that would mandate school nurses be on the concussion oversight team. This would allow nurses to help start the return to play process for these athletes. Even though they do not have the same training as athletic trainers, I still think it would be a good idea to bring them on because they could help gather 504 plans and IEPs or individual education plans to help implement the procedure in the later stages. The nurses could also help educate teachers in regarding the return to learn portion of recovery, but again, this is a different aspect of the QI project, and our main focus is still in implementing the initial baseline test. If they are included, they will need to receive training on what baseline scores mean and potentially how to administer them. Team doctors will be responsible for helping to educate the athletic trainers on concussion diagnosis measures, baseline techniques, and what scores could signify. They could also be the ones who would implement or administer tests at their clinics if we were to partner with them to administer such tests as the impact test. These doctors would also help with the return to play process, but again, that is not the focus of this QI project. The team doctor we do have on board does have a background in concussions, and he is more than willing to help us out with this initiative. Coaches are only part of the team because they have access to the athletes and will have to allow them time to get tested and to make sure athletes are getting tested and complete the test before their first practice. The coaches could also ensure that the athletes are all baseline tests before they begin practice or their first game. They also do receive training from athletic trainers in the UIL in regards to concussion recognition and management, which could help the athletic trainer out in the future. Finally, the athletic director is an integral part of this improvement team. Her office will supply the budgetary money needed for any baseline testing materials the athletic trainers could potentially need for this QI project. She also has the monthly meetings for the ATs, and at these meetings would be the ideal time to spread plans, educate the athletic trainers about the ongoing process, brainstorm new ideas, and disseminate any pertinent information regarding this improvement project. Our aim statement is over the course of the next 5 months, which would be April 2019 to August 2019, would be to implement a baseline test at 1 high school and administer the test to 75% of all athletes prior to their first practice or August 31st. I feel that a hard deadline at the end of August would show the urgency needed for completion of this project before the school year gets into full swing. Also, starting off at one school with approximately 250 athletes would be easy for the QI team to work out potential barriers or faults within the implementation process. The two campus athletic trainers and myself will lead this quality improvement project, and our initial thoughts have revolved around using SCAT 5 or the C3 logics. Currently, this is our flowchart that depicts the athlete or the process of putting an athlete in concussion protocol. As you can see, there is no baseline testing or no standardized method that each athletic trainer would use. This results in inconsistencies in the process. First off, an athlete is suspected with concussion. We have to ask ourselves, are they evaluated by an athletic trainer? If not, we need to ask the question, have they been seen by a healthcare professional? Again, if not, this can lead to a misdiagnosis or the athletic trainer being unaware of the potential injury. If the athlete was evaluated by an AT, we need to ask the question, was it the home campus athletic trainer or another school's athletic trainer? If those answers were yes, did the athletic trainer be made aware if it was tested by an away school's athletic trainer, or was the athlete diagnosed with a concussion by their home campus? If they were diagnosed, then the athlete gets placed in concussion protocol. If not, then the athlete was not placed in concussion protocol. As you can see from this chart, there are other factors in play that would help the athletic trainer with the evaluation and diagnosing of a concussion, but that is outside the scope of this initial QI project. The focus is, without having a baseline test for the other ATs, to refer to the potential for consistency across the district when evaluating concussions do shrink. A couple things that can cause our district to not have implemented a standardized baseline test revolves around policies, cost, methods, and the people. There is no formal policy except for Natasha's Law, and each campus can choose to do their own methods for concussion evaluation. Each campus does have two athletic trainers. Some campuses have their own team doctors, some do not, and not all athletes see athletic trainers for their first concussion evaluation, meaning if they sustain a concussion, the athletic trainer is not the first person they see in regards to their symptoms. A couple of the methods that have been brought up was the reflex, King-Devick, impact, C3 logic, and SCAT5. All these methods do cost something in some capacity, whether it be money or time, and we know as athletic trainers time is money. A lot of the athletic trainers aren't also familiar with newer devices such as reflex, King-Devick, and C3 logic. They are, however, familiar with SCAT5, however they do not use it as a baseline score, or they're also familiar with impact. Again, all of these show that athletic trainers at EPISD do not have a standardized baseline protocol, and these are potential reasons why. Looking at measures for improvement, we know a change is an improvement looking at both the outcome and the process. We see a change in the outcome by simply seeing if the athlete has completed or not completed the baseline test. This affects the outcome because it does impact the athlete's care or services for the athlete. As we move further along in this project, we can assess the actual process. After implementation process has become fine-tuned and smooth, the athletic trainers can look back and see what went well and what went wrong during administration of this baseline test, and changes can be made such as educating the athletic trainers on better testing procedures, putting the athlete in a quiet room with no visible distractions, testing before school, after school, things of that nature. As athletic trainers get better administering the test, the process becomes much smoother. A couple of changes can be thought of initially would be aimed at the testing scores, but since the aim of this project is to implement the test to the athletes, one thing that came to mind is looking at their IEPs or 504 plans. If they have a learning disability, changes can be made to the implementation procedure, such as location or time of day, to best fit the needs for the student. We could also potentially modify the test by not putting a time limit on it, or maybe letting the athlete write down some of their answers instead of verbalizing them. Adding these changes will need to be noted during their initial test and need to be recreated when performing a retest for a concussion. The QI team will utilize a PDSA cycle several times throughout the implementation process. It is anticipated that this cycle will be used after each sports team has been baseline tested. Once all the sports are done, the process should be running very smooth with little to no faults. During the plan portion, the athletic trainers will decide on the appropriate baseline test and implement the who, where, when, and how strategy. After that, we will then implement the test beginning with the sports that start in August and flag or record issues with the testing procedure such as distractions, difficulty with administration, patient misunderstanding. During our study phase, we would review why baseline testing implementation had its faults, brainstorm new ideas or ways to better the implementation process, and potentially look at low scores caused by faults within the implementation process. During our ACT portion, after we study our stuff, we would implement these new ideas to better our original round of testing, retest those scores due to faults within the implementation process, and finally educate our athletes, coaches, and parents on why we are doing the retesting and fixing our initial implementation. Our spread plan would consist at starting at one high school and moving to the two large high schools, followed by incorporating the remaining schools in the district. The initial project will be done by three athletic trainers, which are the two at Irvin High School and myself. Using the PDSA cycle with the initial high school through all their sports teams, fine tuning this process will signal the next phase of the improvement, moving to the two large high schools. The two large high schools will each have their own unique ways that may or may not impact the way we implement this process. The athletic trainers from these two high schools we brought on board as part of the QI team, and that'll bring new, fresh perspective and ideas that may work best for their campus. The goal is to keep all athletic trainers on the QI team. However, if some cannot, we will still keep a few from the original team to best help this project moving forward. Information will be passed on to all campus athletic trainers and disseminated during the monthly meetings with the athletic trainers and the athletic director. This also would be a time to bring in the doctors for new education purposes and to also disseminate more information to best help the athletic trainers. That is my project, and thank you for listening.